So today we're going to be discussing Chapter 4 on the alternative views of evaluation. And more specifically, I'll be talking about one of the 4 approaches called the Constructivist paradigm. And then at the end, I'll talk briefly about how evaluators have kind of attempted to organize these 4 different approaches. So by way of background, when evaluation was emerging as a field, there were competing philosophies and ideologies. People really had divergent conceptions about evaluation in terms of what it was and how it was supposed to be conducted. And so consequently, multiple theories and approaches emerged. And one of those approaches is called the Constructivist paradigm. And this theory really believes that not all evaluation is conducted to determine causal relationships, that some evaluation is done merely to better understand a particular program or product or policy. So this approach recognizes that values and context play an important role. So in other words, that factors that cause success in one setting may not necessarily cause the same success in another setting. So there's a real localness to the Constructivist paradigm. And then really the goal is to provide information about a particular program, but not to generalize that information to other programs or to apply those theories to other programs. So the localness means that individuals and stakeholders are really at the core, because understanding individuals' realities and situations as they relate to that program are actually central to the success of that program. So let's say that you're evaluating the effectiveness of a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. Well, what's critical in this scenario is understanding that participants are only attending because they are court-ordered to do so. So obviously learning about the participants' values and their situations affects how successful a program is or is not. And so that same scenario might look very different if participation is voluntary. So it's really important to kind of understand who the participants are and where they're at, because that affects the effectiveness of the program. So if you're hearing all this and you're thinking, wow, this is a really qualitative approach, you're absolutely right. It requires a lot of observation and interviews of participants, you have to think about that the evaluator is interpreting all of these different stakeholders' views and realities and values, and so it's really not possible to be objective in the Constructivist paradigm. So in sum, the Constructivist paradigm really believes that understanding how individuals' realities and values affect a particular program is critical to understanding how we improve that program. And so several different evaluators have tried to categorize these 4 approaches. And you've learned about one of the approaches. There are in fact 4. And hopefully that, through the conversation we're about to have with your peers, you'll learn about the others. But there's been attempts to kind of categorize these 4 approaches. And the authors of our textbook actually came up with 4 different categories, which they believe all the different types of approaches fall within. So they believe that there's evaluation that makes comprehensive judgments about the quality of a program or product. So these are kind of the old school approaches, very expertise and consumer oriented, requires evaluators to focus on how they would value or judge the quality of any particular product or policy or program. There are also evaluation that's oriented toward program characteristics. And these are more objective and standards-based types of evaluation. So this requires the evaluator to ascertain particular program qualities and then compare program X to a certain standard, a certain set of defined standards. There are also evaluation that can be oriented toward decision making, and so this type of evaluation really focuses on improving the quality of decisions made by stakeholders. And then finally, there's evaluation that is oriented toward the participation of stakeholders, and this can look like a variety of different things, but one example is providing an opportunity for underrepresented groups to have a voice. So I think through our discussions, you're going to see that the other approaches that we talk about don't necessarily neatly fit into one category, that there's really room for overlap. And I hope that you'll kind of see that as we continue our discussions as a group. So I thank you all for your attention, and please feel free to grab someone in Team 4 if you have any questions.